So if you're just joining us, let's get to it now. I mentioned before that you've got the situation with Khabib Nurmagomedov. I'm not going to read the whole thing again, but basically he took to Instagram today. Of course, meeting with Vladimir Putin yesterday. He took to Instagram today and said a couple of things. If you punish my teammate, Zubaira Tugugov, I will quit. Not MMA, but UFC. Somehow we'll break his contract in Russia, where I guess he feels he'd be free of any kind of threats from the courts. I don't know. Says you can keep my money, the $2 million. As my friend John Nash put it, a lot of times these threats are empty, but for a guy who cares more about social capital than, financial resources, that might not be an idle threat. Now, a couple of things to note. I had forgotten about this. Shouts to Kareem Zidane, who had remembered we had Khabib on this show in 2016. And in the course of that, he had threatened that if he didn't get a title shot, he would prevent the UFC from holding any shows in Russia. That never came to pass, but an interesting thing to note historically. Now, Marissa, correct me if I'm wrong, and I might be. Didn't UFC play games and use Khabib and fake bout agreements to get Eddie Alvarez a fight with Conor McGregor?
That is absolutely what happened.
Right. So this is a guy that's been jerked around a little bit. Now, I'm not here to endorse what he said in this. To me, there's plenty of blame to go around on everybody, and everybody should wash their hands of it and move on. In fact, even Khabib's own father, Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, has tried to indicate as much. But boy, Khabib is mad. Very mad. So I mentioned in the last segment, I would tell you what all my major takeaways are for this one, and there's a lot of them, man. There's a lot of them. First of all, this is just really bad for fight fans. Now, in the end, will this get resolved? Some part of me obviously says yes, probably. How fast? I don't know. By what manner? I don't know. You even had Daniel Cormier out there saying, hey, let these guys fight it out, man. Let Artem fight it out. Let Zubaira fight it out. They want to fight it out. Artem Lobov saying, don't let Zubaira go from the organization. He has to face his penalty. So maybe they just find a way around it. Because you'll recall Dana White saying the guys involved in that brawl, they're all gone from the UFC. That's what Khabib is essentially trying to prevent. But to me, it's like you have so much dissension in the ranks. Conor McGregor still gets deals done, but he's routinely unhappy with the UFC. Guys get popular like Nate Diaz, and they're unhappy with the UFC. Luke Rockhold, unhappy with the UFC. Chris Weidman's had his various issues as well. Even Frankie Edgar speaks out time to time. Ronda Rousey didn't have her issues with UFC, but she ultimately just left MMA. I'm just pointing out, there's so many people that are mad, so many people that are upset, and can you really blame them? I just mentioned Nurmagomedov's situation. Just this week with UFC 230, we had Sijara Eubanks kind of get jerked around. And I know no one's going to necessarily extend a lot of sympathy to somebody who is that junior in her career, but I'm sorry, she deserves better than that. Any fighter deserves better than that. And what about Joanna Jędrzejczyk? Yeah, she ultimately got what she wanted, but she got jerked around and things happened to her and she had to complain publicly and then finally got it again. But, none of this is ideal. None of this is happening the way that it's supposed to be happening. It's all bad. I know folks cheerlead when fighters stick it to the UFC, and media does too. And I'm not here to say that Khabib has no complaint. I guess what I am saying is, though, are you really sure that this is what you want? For fighters to constantly be in a position where when they don't have any leverage, they just kind of bitch to the media, and when they finally get some, they exercise the maximum amount. Understand what he's threatening here. It's the nuclear option. It's the nuclear option. I will not fight for you again. After he just became more of a global star than he ever has been. People are bitter. I just don't see how this can be sustained. And I don't know which way it's going to break, for better or for worse, but whatever this is, it can't hold on. And how many times do we have to bring this up? It's like, when are these fighters going to collectively get together and put a stop to this? You don't like how uneven the power distribution is. Nobody does. And look, MMA media's got a ton of problems. It's filled with bootlickers. It's filled with backstabbers. It's filled with corporate puppets. It's filled with you name it. But on this account, shedding light on unionization, shedding light on the power imbalance, shedding light on revenue sharing, they've done everything they can do. I'm not here to say that the MMA media is free from blame generally. No, that is far from what I'm saying. But can anybody reasonably make the argument that the MMA media fails to shed light on this? If anything, you guys are bored with it. You're sick of hearing about it. God knows I'm sick of talking about it. And it's not some panacea that would solve all the problems, but having some kind of mutually agreed upon penalization system, having some kind of tier, having some kind of criteria set out in agreement ahead of time, problems would still arise, but it might head off most of this. Because where does this come from? When business was good and the UFC had all the leverage, because they still have most of it, but when they had all the leverage, they just did whatever they wanted with impunity. But when business kind of flagged a little bit and stars got really popular, then they began to exercise some. And when they had a star like Conor McGregor, who just decided he was going to do, for the most part, not entirely, whatever he wanted to do, including chuck a giant heavy metal object at a bus window, hurting 2 people physically, however many more emotionally, I don't know, causing all kinds of problems, they did nothing. Jumps into a Bellator cage, authorities do nothing. If that had been you or me, we would have left that arena in cuffs. The courts did something, but he was able to essentially get excellent legal representation. I'm not mad at that necessarily, but he says all these really disparaging things, and there's a debate about to what extent people should not be as humorless as they have been. But okay, point being is there's never been a check on this guy. You say you're not surprised, Nate Diaz style, that Khabib jumped out of the cage and went after Dylan Dennis. Can we really be all that surprised about this? This is terrible for fight fans. It feels like things are unraveling a little bit. It just feels like a new way forward has to be forged, and the MMA media can't do it for them. And you MMA fans listening or watching, none of you can do it for them either. Collectively, the we in this conversation, we can't do it for them. They have to do it. And I know the UFC doesn't want to give up on that particularly strong leverage that they have, and they love wielding it because it's still very powerful. But you have to ask yourself when this is going to hit a tipping point. Every time a star gets leverage, they use it in a way, by and large, that does not serve the customer. Now, maybe they eventually come around, and that's good, but this is tiresome. It's unhealthy. Like, what is the best way for a sport to function? It's for Nate Diaz to be taking fights, Conor McGregor to be taking fights, Khabib Nurmagomedov to be defending his title, John Jones to be out there doing great things that we all know he's capable of doing. Daniel Cormier has been, of course, pretty active, and that's been great to see. But there's been so many upset people not getting paid enough, not being treated right. And yeah, I know it gets, you're just wondering, are all these guys crying wolf? Dude, they're not. Yeah, of course, some could take it into their own hands and do things a little bit differently and be a little happier and be a little better, but it's just the fighters know that there is a major imbalance. They know that major imbalance is affecting them negatively, and they're angry about it. That can't just exist forever. And how it's going to change and when it's going to change, well, your guess is as good as mine. And Khabib is not blame-free here either. But it's not about who can shoulder all the blame. It's about what are we going to do so this stops? How do we not get that anymore? That's what I want. I want to come on this show like we did yesterday. And I want to talk about Kevin Lee fighting Al Iaquinta and all the things that means. I want to talk about John Jones fighting Alexander Gustafsson for the second time and what all that means. I want to talk about fights. I want to talk about fights that are made, fights that are scheduled, fights that are easily could happen, fights you want to see, not fights where it's like, oh, that'd be nice to happen, but everybody's mad and no one wants to work together anymore. Tired of it, man. I'm tired. I'm tired of opening this microphone feels like every other week at this point, and everybody's just angry and frustrated. This can't go on. Somebody's got to do something. And if you're waiting for the UFC to come out and say, well, you know what, we want to make sure that everyone's happy, not saying they won't. I'm not in those corporate offices, but I don't know if that bus is coming, y'all. And I thought that the fighters wanted, I don't know, some kind of collective representation. And maybe they do in theory. Hell, maybe they don't in theory. But let's assume that they do. But they haven't done fuck all about it. Leslie Smith out there literally ruining her own career to try and make that happen. But so I don't know how this ends, and I don't know how we get out of this. But this can't last, man. It can't. And truth be told, I don't even think we've hit the bottom yet. I'm fatigued with it, but I don't think we've hit the bottom of this at all. So I've seen the cheerleading out there, man, and I get it. The UFC didn't do anything to Conor, and you kind of feel like, well, those chickens have come home to roost. But if you're a fight fan, just ask yourself, man, how do you win here? How do you get the best out of this? Why? Because you take glee in watching Dana White have to figure out some major problem? That's not why I'm not a fight fan because I want to see Dana White suffer. I'm a fight fan because I want to see fights. I'm a fight fan because that's what I love. The competition, the events, the pageantry, the butterflies in my stomach. This is just fodder for the radio, man. And it's getting old. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel. There's other videos you can watch right here. If you've never heard my SiriusXM radio show, there's a link in the description box below. You can try it for free for 30 days. The Luke Thomas Show airs weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern on SiriusXM Fight Nation, Channel 93. Catch y'all next time.